I read and listened to the book Deep Work by Cal Newport several times and embraced the ideas myself for years. But besides the great concept, I discovered some glaring disadvantages that no one talks about. So what you're about to learn will finally shed a realistic light on deep work and help you find out if the concept might be worth following, how you can easily implement it in your daily life, or when it would rather hold you back. To do that, let's look at a standard working day which should be familiar to many of you in one or the other way, and you tell me if you think that this exemplary day is deep work approved. The first thing that day is a team stand-up, followed by a management sure fix. In the morning, there's just one other 30-minute meeting before lunch. And in the afternoon, one interview is scheduled with an internal debrief session. And you're absolutely right if you think that this is not yet leveraging deep work. Because deep work means getting into an extremely focused and undistracted state to get things done in today's hyper-connected world. Or as Deep Work's author Cal Newport put it, deep work helps to acquire the ability to quickly master hard things and the ability to produce at an elite level in terms of both quality and speed. But from just looking at this day with its 6 totally different activities, I cannot yet sense deep work as it focuses on depth instead of breadth of activities. So it's about mindfully focusing on a specific task and engaging in such deep work instead of just processing one task after another without really thinking about it. And that's exactly the difference between deep and shallow work, which includes tasks that are rather low value, don't require much cognitive effort, and can be done without full focus. Some examples of shallow work are processing emails in your inbox, dealing with administrative or logistical tasks, answering chat messages on Teams or Slack, or attending update meetings. In contrast, deep work can, for example, include preparing a board of management presentation, writing a commercial proposal, analyzing quarterly financial figures, or programming. And no worries, we will take a look at our calendar later to see what this would look like in a deep work setting. So doing such deep work activities, you should always keep in mind to focus on the results which matter, but not the time or tools used to achieve them. Cal Newport said that busyness is just a proxy for productivity. Or in other words, people often mistakenly confuse being busy, so doing many potentially low-value things and shallow work, with being productive and creating actual high-quality output in the least amount of time, such as with the help of deep work. Now, before looking at the practical applications of deep work and the cases it might rather be detrimental to your productivity, let's see what it takes to engage in deep work. Cal Newport describes 4 different ways of getting into deep work that are ranging from moderate to extreme. Whilst on the moderate end, you would only engage in deep work whenever your schedule allows you to do so. The extreme approach is to focus nearly all of your time on deep work. But this side of the spectrum is rather unrealistic to achieve, since even Cal Newport says that our ability for deep work is finite and our willpower is like a muscle that tires over time. So the realistic truth probably lies in the middle, and it's best to split your calendar into deep and shallow work sessions. But regardless of where you see yourself on that spectrum, deep work requires rituals and systems, meaning you should choose and stick to a specific location, duration, structure, and requirements for successful deep work sessions. For example, that could mean you are always doing your sessions either alone working from home or in a small meeting room with the door closed at work. Then you set yourself 2 40-minute blocks for a total of 80 minutes with a 10-minute break in between to step outside and relax. You also mute your phone and put it out of sight to disconnect from all other communication channels. Finally, you might have just still water and your headphones listening to piano music. Establishing your routine is just the basic to properly implementing deep work, but there are 6 more things that you can follow to successfully embrace deep work as a whole. But only if you still think that's suitable for you, whilst it's not for the positions and situations I will cover in a bit. By the way, feel free to check out the link in the video description where you can sign up for my free newsletter with so many more insights, book reviews, and practical productivity tips. So going back to our calendar, the first thing we should do to follow the principles of deep work is to schedule everything across the entire day, just as Cal Newport does. And this is, by the way, a real example of himself. Some might even go that far and schedule their private life in the morning and evening, but let's just stick to work life in our example. First, let's schedule the commute we have to and from work in the morning and in the evening. Second, let's use the time in between the already scheduled meetings and divide it into either deep or shallow work blocks. For example, you could use the first spare 30 minutes in your day to respond to your emails and schedule a deep work session between 11 and 12 to draft a commercial proposal for a new client. In the afternoon, you could schedule 2 more deep work sessions from 1 to 2 and 5 to 6, and in between each 30-minute overflow blocks for emails or some time for coffee. Scheduling and planning everything to a very great level of detail supports Cal's statement that less mental clutter means more mental resources available for deep thinking. As you can see, we have scheduled just 3 30-minute shallow work sessions compared to in total of 3 hours of deep work. This is in line with the overall goal of minimizing shallow work as much as possible because we know it's not very value-creating, but rather a necessity that we need to complete. Latest, by entering a deep work mode, you should also enter a state of mindfulness, in particular regarding the use of technology and social media. I would even go so far as to say it's not only a state of mindfulness, but of sacrifice, which might be difficult in the beginning, but will certainly become easier over time. What I mean by that is the conscious decision to reduce or ideally block or delete the most draining social media, news, or entertainment apps and websites that you usually use. On your phone, this could mean actually deleting them, or on your computer, this could mean just closing or blocking some apps or going offline. So the more extreme of selecting social media and tech wisely is to completely unplug and disconnect. Not only for some hours a day, but ideally also for some extended periods, for example for a weekend per month. You can easily limit or block your use of social media or other sites on your computer with plugins like BlockSite that block specific websites or keywords, or you can start a predefined focus mode on your phone that just lets you access certain apps. Just like in the spirit of George Packer, a former staff writer of The New Yorker, who said that Twitter is crack for media addicts. So it's probably better to take less or even get sober, at least for work. Another simple tip to get and stay in deep work mode is to never multitask. By now, it's hopefully no news that multitasking actually destroys your productivity, since there will always be residual attention on your first task when switching to your second. So you will have this switching cost that makes both tasks' outcomes even worse and takes more time. Now you might think the deep work philosophy is super strict and rigid, so this might not be something you can actually follow. Well, it might be the case in particular if you have a certain profession or responsibilities in your daily life, which I will cover in a second. But just as the deep work approach cares about setting a proper work environment, the concept also cares about a balance between social and private life. In fact, it says you should prioritize downtime to wind down, relax, and make room for new ideas and recover your willpower that is needed later again. Especially high-quality forms of leisure should be prioritized over low-quality forms of leisure. The former are things like spending time in nature, reading a good book, spending time with friends and family, or doing some sports. Whilst the latter can, for example, be just watching TV, scrolling through social media feeds, binge-watching shows on a streaming platform, or surfing the internet. As you have realized, deep work is on the one hand a super simple concept that makes sense, and with the practical tips I just shared is certainly doable. But you might have also realized that it comes with a lot of restrictions, sacrifices, and potential disadvantages. So deep work might not be for everyone, and that's how you can find out if you belong to that group. Reflect on what you have just heard and see if this might align with your personal preferences when it comes to the way you work. Do you feel comfortable and most productive when working on your own? Do you like having your rituals, or can you stick to such things for longer than just a day? If not, or just maybe, because you might be a person thriving amongst others and within a community, fully embracing deep work might not be the best for you. But more importantly, it depends on your profession or the nature of your job and if it allows you to follow deep work. For example, if your job requires constant teamwork or a very high level of collaboration, deep work is difficult. There might certainly be times when you have to do some individual work, but if the vast majority depends on working interactively in a team, it's difficult to shut down and lock yourself completely. Even though Cal Newport also talks about the importance of intentional collaboration in a hub and spoke model, where you expose yourself to ideas in hubs on a regular basis, but maintain a spoke in which to work deeply on what you encounter, this might still be difficult or even impossible for someone working in sales or customer relations or in emergency response or crisis management. Also, deep work might be difficult if you are in a highly creative environment requiring constant inspiration and input, just like in creative design teams. There, it might rather be hindering to block yourself and many inspirational sources for a larger period of time. Just as it's difficult for someone working in a job with a high task variety or with a high volume of fast-changing tasks, such as reporters or journalists in a newsroom. But even if you think you don't have the initial discipline to follow a deep work routine, it doesn't matter, because there are tools and little tricks that help you get started and into a deep work mode easily. So watch this video next, where I show you how that's done and how you can turn your phone into a real productivity asset to finally get more things done whilst being less distracted.